Ian Paisley.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, for calling me this debate, and can I commend the way in which the member for Northampton South introduced the amendments and spoke to them at the beginning of this debate. I think that he served the House very, very well. At the outset, can I say that I'm opposed to harassment? I think it's intolerable for a woman to feel that they're harassed at any point. And it's also intolerable for a man to feel that he's harassed. We've had a little demonstration of harassment, mind you, today in the chamber when a member came into the House, told male members to pipe down, it's none of their business essentially, and then beatled out. That's actually harassment in any definition of harassment, and it's wrong and should be called out and named as such. I think this is a good debate. It's important that we have this debate. It's what this chamber is for, and we should not be afraid of combative ideas. But for members just to be told to pipe down because they're male is really not an argument at all that should be entertained in this place. So harassment should be called out, and we should not be afraid of that. And I object to harassment of women when they go into abortion clinics, if that is their free choice and wish to do it. I'm not advocating that at any point. But at the same time, harassment cuts both ways. It's important that a person wishes to pray, if a person wishes to express their identity, if a person wishes to make points that are fair and free and do so in a non-combative way, they should be encouraged to do that. Indeed, I refer to the Home Office 2018 review, where they actually identified that a lot of protests in the United Kingdom and some of the places identified were simply praying, sometimes displaying banners, and sometimes distributing literature. Now, is there proportionate response to that to bring in a law that essentially says you cannot pray silently in public? I'm going to make the point, and then I will give way, that you cannot pray silently in public, because that seems to be what the government is saying today. We're all aware of the Bible story about Daniel daring to pray and being put into jail. Of course, we'll give way to the Minister.
Clarity, the government isn't saying anything on this matter. It's a free vote. There is no government position on the buffer zone amendment.
I look forward to the Minister being with me in the alternative island this evening. I really look forward to that. The fact of the matter is, whenever we walk into this Palace of Westminster, we walk under a massive portrait by Benjamin West of Moses. We walk through St Stephen's. What is St Stephen's? St Stephen's is a church. We walk over the catacombs, which underneath is another church. And we come into this place and we're debating a piece of legislation which, in the mother of parliaments, can you think of it? We're debating a piece of legislation that will essentially say, if you dare to pray in this Christian nation in silence, in a certain part of this Christian nation, you will be arrested. You will be arrested. I want to make the point, and I will give way later on. You will be arrested for doing that. I think members need to stop and really seriously think, is that the sort of law we wish to pass? Is that the sort of law we wish to support? Because the government does have an opportunity, and maybe the Minister would intervene on me on this particular. Maybe the Minister, no, you're not the Minister. Maybe the Minister would intervene on me on this particular point. Is the Minister willing to say that the government would exclude from this legislation and take out of scope silent prayer as an indication that this liberty of freedom of thought, of freedom to have an opinion in your head, that is allowed? I think that would be the moderate thing for the government to do. You know, freedom of thought is a right enshrined in the European Convention of Human Rights, Article 9. It's also enshrined in Article 18 of the International Convention of Political Rights, and in the freedom of opinion is enshrined in Article 10 of the European Convention. These are international rights that we should all be supportive of, and which we should defend to the very end, because it is about our right to think, to express, and to hold that opinion which we hold dear. Even if it is an objectionable opinion, even if a person doesn't believe in the God that we're praying to, we're entitled to have that. And to remove it in any way is a removal of a legitimate right. But we had a justification in this House. I really had to pinch myself with a justification made in this House that we should actually limit our thought and limit our opinion. And that was because, I'm going to make a point, and I promise I will give way. The point was made by the member for Ely, very clearly, that praying in certain places is not the proper place. Now, the member's entitled to that opinion, but where is not the proper place to pray? Is it not the proper place to pray in here? Will that be the next argument? Where ultimately is not the proper place to pray? And the member wants me to give way, I'll happily give way.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Member for giving way. And I'd like the Honourable Member to help me understand why it's particularly important that prayer must be carried out openly, publicly and ostentatiously. Because if we pray, actually most often, nobody else would know that you're doing it. And the Honourable Member briefly referred to the Bible when he talked about Daniel in the lion's den, and so I'd attract his attention to Matthew 6, verses 5 and 6. And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Is it not possible to do that privately without intimidating others by doing it ostentatiously and publicly?
The Gospel of Matthew, of course, and so some of the months I do know a little bit about this. The Gospel of Matthew, in that, is a wonderful Gospel. Of course, the reference which I made was to Daniel, and Daniel was praying privately in his home. He wasn't, and I did not talk about ostentatious public prayer. Maybe the members should have used their ears and listened to the point I made to the government was about silent prayer, freedom of thought in your head, not freedom of expression outward. I was making that particular point. So if the member had listened, she would have actually got the answer to that particular point that I was making in a moment. When we consider the level of crime across this society, I think there's over 500 knife crimes last year, and we're going to ask the police to actually get engaged and be detained in questioning people about what they're thinking in certain parts of the United Kingdom. I think that's absolutely a complete waste of police resources and police time. And it should not be done. Whenever members will stand up in this House, no doubt, in the future and demand more police action, I think that should be pointed out to them. Well, you know, if we're going to constrain the police into this section and say they must chase after people silently thinking things or silently worshipping or silently praying, that is a waste, a complete and total waste of police resources. In Northern Ireland, we brought in a safe access zone law. And indeed, that law, whilst I don't like that law, and it was in the Northern Ireland Assembly when I'm a member of this House, but it brought in a piece of legislation which said that there must be there must not be unnecessary or disproportionate response by the police. Unfortunately, what we're doing in this House is bringing in disproportionate actions by the police, and we should be moving away from it. Northern Ireland's law, for example, gives police the right to use discretion and to take steps to calm a protest as opposed to stop a protest. And the other point the legislation does, it says that the Department of Health must maintain and regularly publish a list of all potential premises where clinics could be taking place, so as people are aware of where they are and that they can't be, for example, caught out by maybe wearing a t-shirt or a badge or driving a car through an area with a bumper sticker on it that might give someone offence. And of course I will give way.
Well, thank the honourable gentleman for giving way, because I feel the point that he's just made is incredibly important for the circumstance that I was talking about previously. The lady who was arrested in Birmingham and the police arrived to interrogate and subsequently arrest her. Given the other crimes that were going on in Birmingham at that time, it's important to see that the police clearly determined that the most important thing they had to do at this particular time was not deal with knife crime or people who were stealing tools out of other people's vans to stop their way of living, but to go and arrest and interrogate a woman who was silently praying outside a clinic that was closed. Surely that shows a sense of complete disproportionality on the part of the police.
Order. It's quite important that interventions are short, because I know the honourable gentleman will want to be coming to the conclusion of his remarks now, as he's been 10 minutes. Ian Paisley.
I do agree with the point, and I will conclude this, I do agree with the point that the members made in the intervention that the arrest of Isabel Vaughan Spruce was atrocious. It sent out a terrible message. It sent out a terrible message to women. It sent out a terrible message to anyone who wishes to engage in silent prayer in this nation. And I'm glad that that conviction, or that attempt for a conviction, was overturned by the court and was thrown out. It's unfortunate that today again she has been arrested by another police officer saying, "What are you thinking? What are you praying?" That is wrong, and we need to stand up against that sort of harassment also.